Hey guys, Pieguyrulz here, and welcome to Catching Up with the Adventure Time TVlogs. I'm going to be covering some episodes from the middle of Season 5, and I'm going to do a few in each video here to kind of speed along the process, because I want to touch on every episode in Season 5, because there are so many interesting ones, and especially the ones that I missed reviewing. Interesting episodes. It toes the line between your more serious, heartfelt, kind of talky episode of Adventure Time and your action adventure craziness episode of Adventure Time, because you get Finn, he fights a pillow dragon, and you get to see Finn become old and what he's like as an old man, but there's like emotional, Finn has a wife and kids, and you see Finn be a dad. Like it's all really weird, but in the coolest possible way. And the entire thing is set in this pillow world that looks amazing. Imagine Kirby's Epic Yarn in episode form. Like everything's made of blankets and pillows and kind of felt looking things. Everything looks soft, and it's really cool design wise. I would dare say that this is one of the strongest episodes in season 5, because it does kind of have a little bit for everyone, and you don't see where it's going. You don't expect anything, and it's one of those episodes that actually feels a lot longer than it is in the best possible way. Most Adventure Time episodes leave you wanting more, and while this does that, it leaves you wanting more, but it also leaves you feeling satisfied, because it felt like you watched a full adventure. You watched Finn grow up in this episode, and there's a B story too. There's a cool little side thing with Jake and BMO, where they just kind of, it's like a few random vignettes of them just kind of like hanging out. Like BMO mentions Jake's kids, and Jake talks about how they age fast, and Jake throws out his favorite mug earlier in the episode, and then he gets it back, and BMO's confused because he thought he threw it out, and there's just a few little cute moments with that. But yeah, so it's got a very strong story, and one of the problems with a lot of cartoons is that they rely on stock plots, like, I don't know, like two characters feuding, like, one character loses something that's very important to him, and he thinks the other one stole it or something like that. Like there's a stock plot. This show, Finn goes off into an possibly imaginary pillow land and grows up there. Like, it's got a little bit of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe vibe, but it's in no way like a copy of that story. So just a few other things is that the knife storm shows up again, like it did in Rainy Day Daydream, and like they don't even really mention it, but they're inside building pillow forts because they can't be out adventuring because there's knives raining down. I like that Finn gets hung up on like little stupid things with his girlfriend, like, did she get my joke? It's just like little things that make him seem more human. Jake has a cool little transformation thing where he warps his hand around his face, and then he opens it up and there's a little Jake inside. It's cool. It's just, I like when they play around with his powers, because when you have cool stretchy powers in a visual medium like a cartoon, like, go ahead and use them, man. I know I'd use them to emphasize my point if I had those cool powers. So let's see. Manly Finn is really awesome. Like, Finn as an adult is exactly what you'd expect him to be, like barrel-chested with the deep booming voice, like mountain man Finn. And will this be how he actually turns out? Who knows? But I could totally see it. Like, and then, of course, really old Finn gets the mechanical arm, although in this case it's a pillow arm, which just seems to add more credit to the prophecy that Finn's going to lose his arm at some point. It just seems to be a matter of time. I like that when Finn is remembering Jake after like decades have gone by in this pillow world, he remembers Jake with like normal eyes, non-dog eyes, and like a weirder nose, and like he doesn't remember Jake exactly. He doesn't remember what he says at all. He completely makes it up. And what's interesting about this is that it's true to memory. You don't remember how people look exactly. You remember roughly how people look, and then your assumptions of how, ordinarily things would look kind of fill in the rest of the pieces. So Finn imagines Jake with human eyes or whatever, or I guess not really human eyes in this, but So that's a really cool note. But overall, I really like this episode. There's a lot of things that really work well here. So moving on. This episode. You know, sometimes Adventure Time leaves you with an ending that's less than conclusive. This time they left us with an ending that just I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling. So the episode, it's hard to talk about. I guess I should first say that LeVar Burton was Bubble, so that's cool. LeVar Burton was a hard yes. I don't know if I like this episode. It's weird. Oh, an Adventure Time episode being weird? How weird. No, but it kind of feels like an odyssey, I guess, that BMO goes through, and things are presented as, I'm not sure if these are metaphors for greater concepts, or if we're just supposed to kind of take them at face value. I mean, BMO runs across a baby and a bubble, and the bubble seems to really like BMO, and BMO's fairly indifferent to the bubble. You know, and they take care of a baby for a little while, and they go on a few adventures, and then the baby's mom comes and takes the baby back, and then BMO and Bubble go back to Finn's house, and you know they find their way home, and then Jake pops Bubble accidentally, and Bubble marries so the Bubble wants to marry BMO. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about this episode. I really don't. It's, you know, I think what really works for it is that there's a certain childlike innocence to BMO as a character. I mean, BMO is a child. A lot of the things that BMO says and does are things that little kids do. You know, he wants to be babied by Finn and Jake. He tries to imitate what they do. He, you know, makes up his own adventures. He says things wrong. You know, he's a kid. That's what his character is. And I say he, but BMO doesn't even have a gender. BMO is technically speaking genderless. BMO's a robot, and although BMO is never really referred to as a she, I don't think he's referred to as a he, but he's still genderless. It's weird. It is very, very weird. Not even genderless in the way that like SpongeBob is technically genderless. Like he's actually genderless in story. I think they just call him he because that's just easier. But it's so strange, this episode. I don't, like I said, I don't know if I'm supposed to be taking this all at face value or if it's a metaphor or what. But it kind of feels almost like a children's novel, like something like Bridge to Terabithia, which is a weird reference to make, but I think it's kind of like that, where BMO kind of gets lost in the woods and has to kind of learn, like he takes care of a baby for a little while, and he has to find his way home, and he, you know, makes a friend in Bubble, and grows up, and then at the end, Bubble dies, technically, but then Bubble becomes heir, and I mean, that last comment Bubble makes about, like, I'll be with you always and stuff, it was intended to be funny how creepy it is, although BMO doesn't get that. I get that, but is that it? Was that the sake of the joke? Is it actually supposed to be creepy? I don't know. I leave this episode just kind of thinking. And I guess that's just me that overthinks everything I see in a cartoon. Did I enjoy it at face value? I almost want to say no. Because the only real enjoyment I get out of this episode is thinking and trying to figure out what kind of a metaphor they're making here. On the surface, it's really just BMO getting lost in the woods and kind of being weird. You know, like, not much happens in the episode. He gets lost and then he finds his way home. Like, you could figure that out, you know, that was going to happen. Nothing really unusual happens, aside from maybe running across a baby. But that's about it. And nothing is even really particularly funny in this episode. I mean, there's a few moments I like when BMO gets scooped up by a bird, and then the bird tries to feed it BMO to her baby, but BMO keeps like popping out of the baby's mouth. I found that moment to be kind of funny, but otherwise, there isn't really that much for comedy. I mean, there's the dark humor at the end where the bubble just gets popped, and Finn and Jake are just laughing their butts off, not knowing all the trauma that BMO is in. But I don't even really feel, if it's supposed to be a romance between BMO and Bubble, I don't even really feel that, because BMO comes off as a little bit cold to Bubble. Like, Bubble's obviously feeling strongly for BMO through the entire episode, but BMO's just kind of like, yeah, all right, you know, you want to name the baby this, but I'm going to ignore you and name it my way. So I don't know. So that's BMO Lost. I guess in short, I could say that I'm pretty lost. Moving on. This is a good old-fashioned silly Ice King episode. So the Ice King tries to ruin a princess party. Like, this is just, you know, by the books Adventure Time, if there is such a thing as by the books Adventure Time. This is about as average as a story as Adventure Time can have. That's not to say it's bad or anything. It's just it's actually nice to get a refresher where it's just kind of a very straightforward episode. And there's a lot of good jokes in this one. The bounce house princess. Just, how about you come inside and bounce around inside me? No thanks. And then, the banana guards, the Ice King calls him, and he's like, we hate you. Bye. There's like a lot of good one-liners in this episode. I mean, even the payoff at the end is a little bit predictable. You kind of half predict that it's going to end up to be a story where the Ice King was invited all along, and, you know, sure enough, that's what happens. But that doesn't ruin anything. That's just, it's a simple story, but it's used to tell a lot of very strange jokes. And another interesting thing is that this episode takes place during BMO Noir, which is weird because we just had a BMO episode. But the BMO episode before that, or a different BMO episode from a while ago, this episode just connects to it because Jake's got the makeup on and Finn's got the foot thing, because I think BMO steals his sock in that episode. So it's a little bit weird that they would connect it to that BMO episode. It's cool. Like, it's cool that they do stuff like that. And there's no purpose to it. There's not like a brick joke at the end that has to do with BMO or anything like that. It's just there. It's just, hey, this is what happened while this side character was having his adventure. So that's really cool. And then another thing is that we get to see the squirrel creature thing. Is it a cat? I don't even know, bro. But from the Duke of Nuts, way back, Jake had like this random arch rival that appeared out of nowhere, and in this episode he's been shooting at Jake the entire time, and that's what's used as the brick joke, which I guess it's kind of a bait and switch because you expect it to make some reference to BMO Noir, but then instead it's like, nope, here's an episode, you know, here's a reference to episode from season 1. So that's really interesting, and weird and funny. A good way to go out. And I like that Finn wins the random cooler prize, which you think is gonna be a big deal, but no, it's just some weird little blob monster. So yeah, there's not really much else to say. Oh, and there's a great moment. There's some great Gunter moments in this where Gunter has a taser and the Ice King dresses him up like a princess and he's like, hey, maybe I should date you, and Gunter goes with the taser. So yeah, just, you know, very straightforward. It's cool to get a breather episode where you don't have to think too hard about anything because it's as simple as that. Alright, so this episode is weird. But unlike BMO Lost, I actually get it. I get the metaphor here. And it's actually really interesting, especially once you kind of know the little story behind this episode. So James Baxter is the name of an animator who worked at both Disney and DreamWorks. It's a pretty big name in the animation industry. And Pendleton Ward, the creator of the show, Adventure Time, went to a lecture at Cal Arts, which is a big animation school out in California. And he attended a lecture by James Baxter, and someone like mentioned something about James Baxter animating a horse on a beach ball, and that idea stuck with Penn, and that's kind of how this episode got made. And James Baxter, the actual animator dude, He voiced the horse in this episode, and I believe he animated him as well. And the horse is actually animated really beautifully in this episode. I think it may actually have something to do. I mean, it might even be like a callback to in the early days of animation. Wait, was it animation or might just be film actually in general? One of the tests was that to see if they could draw a horse moving, because something about the way the horse moves is like interesting and unique, like how they run and stuff. So to make a fluid animation of the horse running, and I believe it was on one of those machines where you wheeled it around, one of those basic animation things. I sorry, film nerd. But anyway, so the episode, the metaphor here, if you didn't get it, is it's for the creative process. It's for animation, comedy, and all that. Finn and Jake go through the entire episode trying to make up something just to make people happy, which is ultimately what creators do, what animators and people making TV shows and stuff. Aside from making money and all that sort of junk, what you want to do is you want to get a reaction out of people. You want to make people happy. You want to cheer up someone if they've had a bad day. If you can do that, then you've succeeded. And that's what Finn and Jake try to do here. And I think one of the things about the episode is just that it can never be forced. You either kind of have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, you can keep thinking, keep brainstorming, and find something that really works for you. But you can never force something on people, because what makes a person laugh, what makes a person smile, it's going to be different and unique, and it's not something that you can make with a scientific formula. It's just something that comes naturally, and either it works or it doesn't. Again, film nerd here, but yeah, and I think with that metaphor in mind, this episode works quite beautifully. It's very interesting, and like I said, it's all kind of tied together with James Baxter being animated very well, being just kind of like this curious figure. Like, can this horse actually talk? Like, say anything but James Baxter? Does he actually even know Finn and Jake? It doesn't seem like he does. It doesn't seem like he could say anything else. He's just kind of this mystery that runs around making people happy, like kind of a fable or something like that. Like this mythical story of this horse that runs around on a beach ball and says his own name and makes people happy, and he travels the world. It's just, it's a cool thought and a cool concept, and I could see people not liking this episode, because I actually don't think I liked it when I first watched it. I think I just really didn't quite know what to think. I don't know, maybe I didn't get the metaphor the first way through. But it just, once it kind of clicks with you, or if you can relate to the whole creative process, and trying really hard to work on something to make people laugh and be funny, and it just doesn't work. Anyone who's ever done that and failed, anyone who's ever tried, because if you try comedy, at one point you're gonna fail. It's just natural. You have to fail in order to get better. You can really relate to this episode and really kind of relate to it all, and the journey that Finn and Jake go through. And there's also a bunch of good moments. There's a moment in the beginning of the episode where Finn and Jake try to cheer BMO up, and Jake stretches his butt over Finn's face, and just the reaction of Finn, like he starts screaming and horrified, and just how nonchalantly Jake does this to Finn is really just funny. It makes me laugh out loud every time. Like, that's just something comedy that works, which is kind of ironic because they spend the rest of the episode looking for something that works, and I think that worked really well. And we get more of BMO being BMO, pretending to be pregnant with like an egg taped to him. I think it's a really sweet episode. I think it's got a real emotional core to it, and a real strong, relatable message to it. And it's cool that they got James Baxter to actually be a part of it, because like I said, he is a pretty big name. So yeah. Alright, I hope you enjoyed these episode reviews. I'll be back with more very soon. Pieguyrulz, out.